Welcome back to the Thread of Thoughts podcast. I am your host, Tia. I am so excited to talk about today's topic, honestly, because it's been on my mind for a while now. Okay? I know you guys have read the title before clicking play, but today we will be talking about expectations and disappointments, and I'm just ready to jump straight in, okay? Because, like I said, it's just been on my mind for a while, and I just need to talk about it. And I just feel like I'm sure we have all heard the phrase, expectations lead to disappointments, right? Like, I just couldn't agree more. My mom tells me this all the time. All the time. She's like, you're upset and you're mad because you expected this and you assumed this. And it just leads to my own heartbreak and just upsetness, if that's even a word. And just, it's like I break my own heart by having these like expectations and assuming a person would do something or be a certain way, right? And I just know that we have all felt disappointment before. We all have. Like, I know we have. And in different areas, of course. For me specifically, though, I feel disappointment when people can't meet me where I need them to meet me, or show up for me in the way I need them to, or hold space for me in the way I need them to, and in different ways, of course. And I mean, I just really get let down easily. I feel like I'm gonna get emotional talking about this, but I get let down so easily. But through reflection and these past couple of days and these past couple of weeks, I realized why I get let down so easily. So what it really comes down to is two things. Number one being expectations. Of course, that's what the bulk of the episode is about. Expectations is definitely a reason I get let down easily. And I just feel like it's so easy to view people or even things, honestly, through these sort of rose-colored spectacles, right? Like, we paint this image in our minds of how we think people or things should operate in our relationship with them or it. We romanticize, we fantasize, and we just simply create these visions or outcomes in our minds that just don't align with reality at all. And not even just through view, but how we hear others as well. A person can be as black and white as possible, but we can still manage to filter out their words and hear what we want to hear, which can still lead to disappointment, right? We can only accept what people have to offer and accept them as they are, or don't. You're definitely not obligated to remain tied to anybody. Like, you're not. But a person will tell you and they will show you exactly who they are. And in addition to that, I think it's really important to ask yourself, are my expectations realistic for the people or the person that I'm expecting from? Second reason I get let down easily is my communication. I have to be honest. And it's so crazy because I'm one of those people that's like, oh, communication is key. Yeah. I want people to communicate with me, like be honest with me and be transparent with me. But when it comes to me being that way with others, it's not easy, right? I don't have the best communication when it comes to expressing my needs. I just don't. Expressing my needs and asking for help places me in a very, very vulnerable state that I just don't like to be in, truthfully. It's just a really bad habit of mine, but I tend to expect, I tend to expect others to read me and study me and act from there. I know. This is really bad. I know this is really bad. I expect others to know when I'm moody or when I'm upset or when I want a foot rub. But it's like, Tia, you are a grown ass woman. Like, speak up. Speak up, right? And again, just because I've experienced previous relationships with people who were good at reading my energy, that doesn't mean the next person will. And every time I don't speak up for myself and my needs, I'm putting myself second. And as a grown woman, I need to communicate my needs and advocate for myself because closed mouths don't get fed. Okay? What it really comes down to is that I really hate asking for anything. I really do. It mainly stems from rejection. Fear of rejection is normal. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal. I don't want anyone turning down a request of mine or looking at me crazy or thinking I'm overstepping boundaries or I don't know, thinking I have an unclear outlook on our dynamic. I really overthink things. And shit can be so simple with communication, but I always feel like I'm risking whatever the relationship is. It's just, but then it's like, if it's really real, the communication, if it's really real, the communication wouldn't even be a bother. But like I said, I can definitely overthink things sometimes, but I can also be very much detached from certain things as well. I think it really depends on how deep I view the dynamic of the situation. So it's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. Like, oh my God. And it's like I'm talking to you guys about this, but I'm also talking to myself, right? And I think that's why I needed to get on the mic, talk about it, let you guys hear it, but I also need to hear it myself. And I think that a lot of times we can have these thoughts in our heads, but once you get to actually formulate it into words, it's different. It's just different. So there's that. But overall, I know I need to get better at saying, hey, can you do this for me? Can you show up for me in this way? And I think it's really important to give people the option to say yes or no. And it also kind of provides this sort of prep, for their response. Like you can prep for their yes or prep for their no, and then it just saves you from being upset, and it just provides a lot more clarity. And in addition to that, I want to share this. I used to have that mindset of, don't ask me for anything that I can't ask you for. But that's human connection. We need people to assist us and aid us in areas that we can't aid ourselves in. You might need to go to your friend who's good with advice on divorce or something, while she may need you to chaperone a field trip. I don't know. Just something of that nature, right? Because of course, reciprocation is extremely important, but it may look different, right? My friend and I actually had a conversation recently about how we can show up for one another. I communicated with her that one of my needs is just reassurance, right? I'm just one of those people that need reassurance and words of affirmation. It just really helps. And when I'm feeling down and out, I just really need uplifting words and encouragement, compliments, things like that, right? You know what? I actually heard somewhere that whatever you require the most as a love language is what you have a hard time giving. I think it was something along those lines. And this is so true because I'm not good at giving words of affirmation or reassurance. Like I just can't cheer someone up with words. I can't do it. Don't come to me for anything in that room. Okay. I'm more of an acts of service girly, but that's my way of showing up, right? And everyone's way of showing up is different. And we're going to want people to show up in different ways depending on the situation and the circumstances. It will vary. So let me actually tell you guys this recent disappointment I experienced. I had a conversation with someone the other day where I was just sort of venting about how I was feeling really stuck. I was just spilling my emotions out to them, right? And they were just like, well, man, you got to get your shit together. Like, you got to get your shit together. You got to get right. Like, get your shit together. Huda. A lot of nothing. A lot of nothing, right? And I'm appreciative they were able to be a listening ear in that moment. I really do appreciate it. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I was, in fact, disappointed, okay? Mainly disappointed at the fact that they didn't have a more empathetic approach, right? Disappointed at the fact that they couldn't provide me with better words of encouragement because at that time, that was all I was seeking. But it was wrong of me to expect that they could even do that for me or even have the capacity to do so. Every day, why am I about to get emotional? somebody help. Every day I'm learning that just because someone is a friend or a family member or in some way in close relation to you, that does not mean they know how to show up for you and love you in certain ways. You do, in fact, have to teach people how to love you sometimes. And that's all right, you know? We're all doing this life shit for the first time. We're having these relationships and these dynamics with people for the first time. It's all right. So I talked about the main two reasons I get let down being expectations and lack of communication. Now, let's actually talk about why people expect, because it's normal. It happens. Do not beat yourself up for it, okay? I came up with 4 reasons through this reflection that I was having as to why people do expect. So number 1 being past experiences, right? When you're used to things being a certain way, it's very easy to subconsciously expect the future experiences to be the same way. And also, change isn't always easy. If you ever watch those sort of teen movies where it's like a really popular rich girl and she moves to this like more smaller town and, you know, she's used to having lunch delivered to her every day and like her crown on her head and she's just like this princess, but then she goes to this school where the kids aren't as, you know, high up and things like that. And she's like, oh, you guys don't get lunch delivered? Oh, you guys don't wear crowns? Whatever the case is, you know, she's not used to that because her past experiences were different, right? I know, terrible example, but it was the quickest thing I could think of. But that's how her past experiences were, right? So she's thinking like, oh, okay, this is just a regular family move. We're just moving. I'm going to another school, but the other school should be the same way my last school was, right? But you have to adjust to that change. Number 2, hopes and desires and dreams and all of the good things, right? So when you have a positive outlook on life and just your future and things like that, it's possible to have high expectations. That can just happen. Number 3, communication. When agreements are put in place, it's expected for someone to fulfill those agreements. It's normal. When someone says they're going to do something, you will hope that they do it, right? So that tends to be another reason we expect. Last but not least, number 4, external factors, such as social media, societal norms, those things that are just outside of us, I feel like can really produce unrealistic expectations. All of this influential stuff, you know, whatever. And I've talked about this in my previous episode where it's easy to be easily influenced, but not everything that's meant for others is meant for you. And the way someone else experiences something isn't going to be the way that you're going to experience it. At the end of the day, though, we can only control ourselves and our actions and our way of thinking. And I'm really talking to myself when I say this because I have a hard time not being in control of certain situations. Wow, I'm like low-key getting teary-eyed. It's like okay, let me see if I can get back into it. Because I just really feel like this is something I really, really struggle with this. Like letting go of things, not having control over certain things, and just having those expectations and it's really something I need to unpack. So if y'all hear me make another episode about this, don't be surprised, right? Like I said, we can only control ourselves, our actions, and our way of thinking. We have no control over others. And you shouldn't hold people to certain expectations, especially if they weren't communicated. You just can't hold people to certain expectations and get mad at them for not fulfilling them because that's simply not who they are or what they want to do. And that's a valid enough reason. And that's something I have a hard time understanding too. Is just, anyways, it could just be so disappointing. Like I said, I'm really, really talking to myself here when I say this, but I just want y'all to know that I know, like, trust me, I know. And another thing I want to say is stop expecting you from others. Just because you're considerate doesn't mean that someone else is considerate. Just because you're a giver doesn't mean that someone else is a giver. And even if they are, they still might not be someone who has a large capacity to show you the way you show them. Or maybe it will show up differently, which is why communication is so important. People show up in different ways or simply just not at all, honestly. Someone may feel like they're giving you 100% and you might feel like it was 20%. So it's just really important to have that communication. Oh my gosh, it's so important. And like I said, I'm talking to myself because I'm not an expert in this area. I'm not. And I know it's probably like, well, Tia, if you're not, I'm just sharing with y'all what I've come to realization about. Okay? Because this is just, it's serious. It's serious. At least to me. I really do let myself down and I break my own heart with these expectations that have never been sent or received through communication. Like I said, I'm always saying communication is key. Communication is key. No. And I think for me, well, it is. I'm not saying no in a way where it's like, oh, no, don't communicate. Definitely communicate. But for me, it's like I always say I want people to communicate with me because I'm very easygoing. But I think the fear of communication is you don't know how it's going to be received. You don't know how that person is going to react. It's literally fear of the unknown. You don't know how that person's going to take it. You don't know what it's going to lead to. And if it's anything real, a conversation should not be the reason a relationship or friendship or whatever the dynamic is fails. If it's strong enough, it won't fail from a conversation. The assumptions lead to anxiety. It leads to depression. And actually, one of the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is to never make assumptions. And I actually have the book right here, and I would like to read these certain paragraphs from the book that really stood out to me when it comes to making assumptions and expectations, because to me, it all ties together. It's so crazy, too, because I bought the 4 agreements and then he came out with the 5th. I was like, excuse me? Anyways, let me open up my book. Do y'all hear the pages? So it was pages 66 through, I believe, 68. So this paragraph here on page 66 really stuck out to me. It says, making assumptions in our relationships is really asking for problems. Often we make the assumption that our partners know what we think and that we don't have to say what we want. We assume they are going to do what we want because they know us so well. If they don't do what we assume they should do, we feel so hurt and say, you should have known. There's a paragraph here on page 67 that I'd like to read as well that says, in any kind of relationship, why am I getting emotional? No, I don't want to cry on the podcast. In any kind of relationship, we can make the assumption that others know what we think and we don't have to say what we want. They are going to do what we want because they know us so well. If they don't do what we want, what we assume they should do, we feel hurt and think, how could you do that? You should know. Again, we make the assumption that the other person knows what we want. A whole drama is created because we make this assumption and then put more assumptions on top of it. He continues here on 67 through 68 and says, it is very interesting how the human mind works. We have the need to justify everything, to explain and understand everything in order to feel safe. We have millions of questions that need answers because there are so many things that the reasoning mind cannot explain. It is not important if the answer is correct. Just the answer itself makes us feel safe. This is why we make assumptions. If others tell us something, we make assumptions. And if they don't tell us something, we make assumptions to fulfill our need to know and replace the need to communicate. Even if we hear something and we don't understand, we make assumptions about what it means and then believe the assumptions. We make all sorts of assumptions because we don't have the courage to ask questions. Okay, page 72, and I promise this is the last one. I'm not going to be I'm not trying to sound like an audiobook, but it says this really stuck out to me. I'm just saying these are the areas in the book that really stuck out. The way to keep yourself from making assumptions is to ask questions. Make sure the communication is clear. If you don't understand, ask. Have the courage to ask questions until you are as clear as you can be. And even then, do not assume you know all there is to know about a given situation. Once you hear the answer, you will not have to make assumptions because you will know the truth. I need to read that book from the beginning again. It's just one of those timeless reads. You know, it's just very timeless. You read it over and over and over again, and it just hits every time. I just really had to read that because, in a sense, too, I feel like making assumptions is a form of inviting trouble in your mind when there is none. It could just be so painful and so disheartening when you realize that someone you want to meet those expectations and requests and just show up for you in a certain capacity just can't or just won't. But I have to take accountability when I'm creating these narratives in my head that just don't exist. I do. We all do. I also have to put myself in a person's shoes when it comes to expectations, because don't expect anything from me. Like, don't expect anything from me. Like, don't. Just like how at the end of work emails, I'll be like, don't hesitate to reach out. Hesitate. Actually hesitate to reach out, right? Just like, don't expect anything from me, okay? And specifically for me, it's like, just don't expect me to play a role or act on anything that wasn't communicated or agreed to on my end. Just don't. So how fair is that to put expectations onto others? So to wrap up this episode, express your needs one time. Twice is begging. They heard you the first time. Don't over communicate. Okay. There are people out here who will. And let me repeat that for myself to hear, because I don't even think I heard myself the first time. There are people out here who will. If you find yourself in a situation where you just need to walk away from it because a person is not giving you what you deserve, please find the courage to walk away. And I know it's easier said than done. Do what you need to do. Like, really do what you need to do. And sometimes it's going to take you going back and forth until you really realize it and it really like knocks you in the head. Right? So just know your worth. Set your boundaries, communicate your needs. I'm working on doing the same. We got this, okay? 2024 is not the year of repeating yourself. It's just not. Take care of yourself. And we got this. And again, like I said, I'm talking to myself. Because I need it. All right. I'm done here. I am done, and all of my devices are dying. Phone, laptop, and iPad. Everything's dying right here in front of me. So let me actually get these hooked up on the charger. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, I always appreciate it. Make sure you follow, listen, and subscribe on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. Yeah. Okay. And also make sure you guys are following that podcast Instagram. I told y'all last time I only had 30 followers. I still have 30 followers. What is going on? Follow that podcast Instagram at Thread of Thoughts Pod, and we will talk soon. Bye.